Okay, for this video on notes receivable, I'm going to build a spreadsheet. I actually recommend you building it too. You can do this in Google Sheets or Excel. It should work. The formulas are simple enough that it should be universal as far as the spreadsheet goes, whatever spreadsheet program you work in. So we're going to talk a little bit about what they are and how they work, and then I'm going to build basically kind of a calculator here that can help with homework or help with problems and that kind of thing. So you don't have to build it; it's not an assignment, but something I would recommend. Okay, so notes receivable. So this is notes receivable, which means we are receiving payment. People owe us money. It's like a short-term loan, which means it bears interest. It's a formal agreement. It bears interest. So in this chapter, we're going to learn how to figure interest. So first off, some important vocabulary. The maker is the party making the promise to pay. So the maker is the one that actually owes you the money in this case, because we're dealing with notes receivable. The payee is the party to whom the note is payable. So it'd be us as in the business, because we are the one that's going to receive payment. The face amount is the amount that's written on the face of the note. This could also be called the principal amount. So if you say something like I took out a $10,000 loan, that's the face amount. So the face amount doesn't include interest. The face amount is just what is on the actual face of the note. We will figure interest as well. The issuance date is exactly what it sounds like. It is the date that the note is actually created, or the date that it is issued. The date, due date or maturity date is the date when the note is to be paid. So when it comes due, when I owe the money, and usually that's both principal and interest. The term of the note is the length of time that the note is outstanding, so the date between the issuance date and the due date. And then the interest rate is a rate of interest that must be paid on the face amount of the for the term of the note. Now, something interesting you want to make note of as far as interest rates go, the interest rates will always be stated, in this case, on an annual basis. So we're going to have to do a calculation to adjust for how much interest is actually owed based on it not being outstanding for a full year. So for example, the one they have in the book here, Exhibit 6, the promissory note, it says that they have a $2,000 note. So that's the face amount, $2,000. The issuance date of the note is March 16th. We'll say 2018. It says Y8 in here, but that's fine. We'll say 2018. The term of the note is 90 days. Okay. And then we have the due date of the note. Now, something cool that Excel does, and pretty much all spreadsheet programs that I know of, is that dates are actually numbers that are formatted differently. So what that means is that you can use them for math. So rather than having to count days like they show you in the book, if you do this in Excel, you can simply take the issuance date plus the term, and it should return to you the due date, okay, which is correct in this case. 6/14, 2018 is 90 days from 3/16, and that always works. If I made this 60, it would tell me what it is. If I made this 120, it would tell me what it is. So issuance date plus term gives me the due date and the maturity date of the loan. The interest rate in this case is stated at 10%. That would be an annual amount. We'll talk about what days to accrue and interest to accrue is later when we actually do some accruals. And then, yeah, interest to accrue, we do that too. Now, we can figure out how much total interest is on the note. So the calculation for total interest on a note is base amount times the interest rate times the term divided by 360. Now, they use 360 rather than 365 because it makes the numbers nice and round. Also, banks tended to do that for a long time when they didn't have necessarily the capability of making it all 365 days, to kind of make it just a nice round even number for an entire year. But just so you know, because this book does that, it means when you're figuring your problems and your homework and everything, you're going to want to make sure that you label that, even though you know there's 365 days in a year, you're going to want to label your days per year as being 360, just so you get the same number that they get. So I'm going to take this formula I just did, face amount times interest rate times the term divided by 360. And I'm going to put that in my total interest to accrue note. So I'm going to go equals face amount times interest rate times, I'm going to put this in parentheses to make sure this happens first, the 90 days divided by 360. Enter, and that tells me that there's $50, excuse me, total interest on this loan. So that's a calculation you can see in the book, but banks and mortgage companies use 360 rather than 365, so we're doing the 360 number here too. So the maturity value, if you want to put another line in here, the maturity value of this would be the face amount plus the interest. Okay, so now if you've built this correctly, I'm going to highlight the only ones you should have to adjust or change are these four. So if you have a face amount, if you have an issuance date, if you have a term, if you have an interest rate, all the rest of this will be calculated for you if you've written it like I did. So for example, if I had a $10,000 note that was issued, let's say today, 10/21 or 2020, and let's say that it is a 60-day note, and the interest rate is 12. That would mean that, and this calculation already did it, it just ran it through this, $200 worth of interest, the total maturity value is $10,200, the due date is 12/20, and all I put in was the given information. Now, I am going to go on in the next video and talk about how we actually record this, how we separate out our interest versus the principal, and how that gets recorded into our books. And actually, how it does it in this chapter is we are going to issue a note receivable for a company that has outstanding accounts receivable to us that can't pay us. So rather than an uncollectible account, we're going to say, okay, we'll let you have more time to pay us, but we're going to charge you interest for it. So we're going to look at how it is that we record that for our books, and we'll do that in the next video.